Greetings from the peaceful confines of Queen's Park Cemetery in northwest Calgary. We're here today searching for a very specific grave and for a very specific reason, which I will talk about right after the opening. Now, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you know that we do love ourselves a good cemetery. They're very peaceful places. They're a great place for reflection, quiet contemplation, and there's a lot of history tied up in these cemeteries. Now, Queen's Park Cemetery is a lot bigger and certainly more active than a lot of the small graveyard cemeteries that we have visited multiple times. But like I said, I'm here for a specific reason. I'll try to avoid making a short story long, but basically it all started a couple years ago when the Alberta Library put the Calgary Herald archives online and made it accessible and searchable. And over the last couple of years, I have spent a lot of time going through and digging up old newspaper articles and clippings on various topics. And going back through those archives, it seemed like no matter what topic of interest I was searching, I was always coming across one name and one specific column. The name is Ken Liddell. Now, a lot of people, especially if you're under a certain age and not from the prairies, probably have never heard of Ken Liddell. But Ken wrote a column that for many years in the Calgary Herald was simply known as Ken Liddell's column. The column was originally known as Furrows and Foothills, and that kind of really describes the sort of thing Ken focused on, and that was basically going out, traveling around and collecting stories of people and places from really across the prairie provinces, but with a primary focus on Alberta and really southern Alberta. Now, Ken himself was not actually from Alberta. He was born in Regina, Saskatchewan, and his first job in the media was working with the Regina Leader Post, a job he took in 1930 when he was just 18. So if you do some math, Ken, of course, you can figure out, was born in 1912, which made him the same age, essentially, as my grandparents. So after his stint in Regina in 1949, Ken moved to Edmonton and took a position as provincial editor with the Edmonton Bulletin. Now, he didn't hold that position very long, leaving Edmonton in 1950 to take his job at the Calgary Herald, and that's really where I would say the legend of Ken was born. So Ken's first column in what was at the time known as Furrows and Foothills started with this statement: "It'll be nice to get out and visit with the folks. Whether they are following the furrows or riding the foothills, there's a bunch of great people, just folks, in this part of the country. And they have interesting stories to tell of how they got to be what they are." I think that sums it up really well, and that, to me, is very typical of the sort of thing that I try to do here on the channel. For a while, I'm a little too introverted a lot of times to deal with a lot of people. I still do love learning the stories and seeing the places around the province, and that's essentially what Ken ended up doing in his column, was traveling the beat, primarily in Alberta, but actually extending into BC and all the other prairie provinces, and just basically going out, meeting people, telling their stories, and talking about the places that he had been. He basically was living the sort of life I would really love to be living right now, just traveling and telling stories. So, given that I told you Ken was born in 1912, and given that I am standing in the middle of a cemetery, I'm sure you have very little doubt about the ending of Ken's story. But I can give you a little bit more detail about the ending. So sadly, Ken's life came to an end suddenly in 1975. I don't know if he was sick or if it was completely unexpected, but basically he was publishing a column one day and the next day he was gone. So that was the end of Ken Liddell's column. I wrote in a blog post a couple years ago when I first talked about Ken how I feel a grandfatherly connection with him. Both of my grandparents died before I turned the age of 3, so I never had that grandfatherly relationship with anyone. But even, what are we, 45 years, 47 years after his death, Ken still fills that void for me. I can sit down and read some of his old columns, and it's just like having your favorite grandfather there saying, hey, grab the keys, let's go on a road trip, let's go see what we can find. And that's what reading Ken's columns does for me. And that is what has brought me here to Section M of Queen's Park Cemetery. Is I felt like after all the enjoyment I've gotten from his work over the last couple of years, and having written a column for 25 years, there is a lot of his work to enjoy. I thought it was time to finally come pay my respects to the final resting place of Ken Liddell. So according to Find a Grave, Ken is buried here in Section M, row 14, plot 115. So that's what I'm going to look for. And hopefully when I get there, there aren't too many people around so that I can still kind of talk and record video while still maintaining a proper respect for the other people who are currently using the cemetery. This is, like I said, a very busy cemetery. There's actually a funeral taking place today, so I was glad that I didn't need to be in that section. And I don't know when this video is going to come out. I've been making a concerted effort to publish a video a week lately, and so I'm trying to get some videos in the can, if you will, in advance so that I can have things ready to publish in case there's a week where I don't have any content to post. So this may not come out right away. You may be seeing this in the winter, and I'm here on a day when I am sweltering right now. It's probably about 30 degrees Celsius. Another reason why I don't know for sure when I'm going to release this video is Ken Liddell has a connection, and a pretty strong connection, to another story that I hope to tell in a future video that I haven't filmed yet. So I don't want to give any spoilers out right now, but I may wait and release this video closer to that video so that I don't have to reiterate the entire story of Ken Liddell when I film that other subject. And as a little sneak preview, the other subject I think is going to lead into an entire series of videos that I hope to be recording over the next while. I've had the idea for a fairly long time. It's just finding the time to actually execute on those ideas that is the challenge. But anyway, I've blathered on long enough. I told you I was very much at risk of making a short story into a long one. So this is row 15 according to the sign, so I just need to get over one row there and start walking down until I find plot number 115. I guess they call them blocks here. So section M, block 15. Okay, so I pointed the wrong direction. I had to go the other way. So this is section M, block 14. So now we just walk and see what we can find. Now we're definitely in the right section. A lot of these have dates from the mid-70s, so it's just a question of where along this row we'll find Ken. Okay, this one here says 39, so I'm assuming they're going up in ascending order. Yes, here's 45, so I have a little ways to go to get to 115. I have to think that Ken, as a lifelong journalist, would be really amazed at the changes that have taken place since he left this world in '75. The article discussing his death in the Calgary Herald just lists, you know, his widow Evelyn and their complete home address. So I've looked it up on Google Street View to see where Ken was living at the time of his death. I'm not sure how long he and Evelyn lived in that house, but I just find it funny the standards and how things have changed, that, you know, when somebody died, their entire home address was published in the newspaper. I think Ken would probably get a chuckle out of knowing that would never fly today. Oh, funny, I just turned the camera back on to record walking around this tree, and here he is, Ken Liddell, 1912 to 1975. So he was actually really easy to find. There's this bush here that has grown up right at the head of his grave. I have no doubt over the last 47 years that bush has grown a lot. It's amazing to think somebody who died when I was only 2 years old would all those years later be such a great influence, if you will, and inspiration. Ken, like I said, for the last 25 years of his life, he was really living the life that I'd like to be doing full time, and he somehow managed to make a living out of it. So that's pretty remarkable. And it's great that 2 years after I became a real big fan of his, I finally make it here to his final resting place to pay my respects in person. So I don't know what became of Evelyn Liddell. I figured while I had a couple minutes, I just did a quick search here on ye old portable device to try and see if Find a Grave had any reference to her, and nothing came up, at least not in the local area. There were a number of listings for burials in the US and whatnot, so I'm not sure what became of Evelyn, but I'm glad I was able to track down Ken's location there and pay my respects. And I think I might have cut my hand a little bit on something. There might have been some broken glass in that area. I should have brought a small brush or something instead of trying to use my hand. But yeah, that was kind of, I won't say kind of cool, but it was interesting, and it was a good place to come and visit, just to see someone who got to do what I'd love to do, and who really, just through his writing and through his columns, really seems like somebody I would have loved to have had a chance to know. Certainly through reading his words over the last couple years and his 25 years of journalistic columns and endeavors. He also was the author of about 5 different books relating to life on the prairies. So I haven't found one of his books yet. I keep hoping to stumble across one in the wild someday. It's kind of a little treasure hunt that I do. A lot of his books were centered around, like I said, life in the prairies, life with the railroad. So a lot of things that I find interesting even all these years later. So good on you, Ken. You live on through your work. You've certainly left quite a legacy. So speaking of that legacy of 5 books, almost 5,000 newspaper columns, there was also in 1976 a scholarship dedicated in Ken's name. And since you know I pride myself on a lack of a script, I'm just going to read here so that I make sure I get the name right. It was established by the Calgary Herald and the Travel Industry Association of Alberta, and it was called the Ken Liddell Memorial Award for Excellence in Reporting on the Subject of Tourism. And I found a couple references to it in the years that follow, but then it just kind of disappeared from the record, at least from the records where I was searching and what I was trying to find. So if anybody has any information about what actually became of the Ken Liddell Memorial Award for Excellence in Journalism in relating to the topic of tourism, I would really like to know. And as the teaser for the video that I talked about earlier, and the reason why I don't know when this video is going to come out, the tourism aspect of it plays a big factor. And we're going to talk about some of the kind of early days of Calgary tourism and a couple of different promotional efforts that took place. And I think they're going to make for a really interesting series of videos. And like I said, the first one of that series has a really direct tie to Ken himself. So I don't know when I'm going to get around to filming that, but hopefully here before the snow starts to fly this year. So from Queen's Park Cemetery in beautiful northwest Calgary, Alberta, I just wanted to say thank you again for watching. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a great time here on the channel lately. I've been able to get content out on a regular basis and hoping to keep that up. So thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.